I'm a Welsh boy. No, hell no. I had this argument with my father-in-law. He said, we should be supporting England. I said, why? I never support England in anything I do, just because they're World Cup. No, I'm not going to support them. But it's good, though. It's good to see. Oh, that's good.
Good on a quorum. Okay, ready? Adam, ready? Okay.
Here's that signed signature.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. The time is now 5:35 p.m. We have a quorum, and I'd like to call the regularly scheduled monthly meeting of the Architectural Review Board to order. My name is John Gaines. I'm the chair of the ARB, and I would like to welcome everyone to this public hearing to discuss the cases we have listed on our agenda tonight. A copy of the agenda and the sign-in sheet are on the table in the foyer, and it is important that you sign in if you wish to comment on a particular case. If you have not signed in but wish to speak on an item, please raise your hand, and when called, state your name and address from the podium. Case information will be projected for public viewing, and they are also available at the city's website. The ARB has a number of protocols designed to facilitate an orderly, civil, and efficient hearing. These are as follows. All presentations and comments are to be made from the podium and addressed to the board, not to the audience. We ask also that all discussions remain civil and focused on matters within the purview of the board. Members of the public who would like to comment on a particular case will have 3 minutes to share their comments. Before starting, I'd like to introduce our board members. From my left, far left, Clay Hagendorf, Lindsay Thorne, Ashley Arms, and to my right, Adam Keeney. Larry Gottsman will be along shortly, I believe. Also, I'd like to introduce our staff, Lady Hernandez, Director of Community Development Services. Phil's not here. Tyler Brewer, our senior planner, and Maxwell Hauser, our permit technician. Thank you, staff, for being here and supporting us so well. Approval by the board does not take the place of a permit. Permits for all work must be obtained by the Office of Community Development Services prior to installation or construction. The next item on our agenda tonight is the approval of minutes. With that, and these are for June 16, 2026.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And with that, Tyler, you want to please read our first case on the item for tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our first case tonight, we'll start with our 3 sign cases. This is case number 1046S, request of James Alfaro of Alamo Sign Solutions, applicant for permanent signage at 5164 Broadway Street. This is for Nothing Bundt Cakes. The property in question is zoned Business District 1. It's located at the southeast corner of Broadway and Grove Place. And again, this is a request for permanent signage. Here's an aerial with the site of the business indicated. Here are the existing conditions. Of course, this is an existing business. This would be to replace and modify their existing sign. Here's the proposed sign, both day rendering as well as a night rendering. The sign specifications. With respect to policy analysis, this does comply with a number of signs. They only have one proposed to replace one existing sign. The city's code does have a maximum for wall signs of 24 square feet, as we've seen with other cases. This sign does exceed that maximum, which is part of the request tonight. Measured per code, so if you took a box around, a rectangle around the exterior of the sign, it would be just over 107 square feet, which obviously exceeds the maximum 24 square feet allowed. The actual area of the signage, if you took out all the negative space, is just over 55 square feet. And there's no public notice required per the city's code with sign cases. Happy to answer any questions that the ARB has. And do we have the applicant in the audience for this one?
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. I'm James Alfaro, owner of Alamo Sign Solutions. We're representing Nothing Bundt Cakes. Obviously, as you can see, the existing signage is fairly old, and the corporation is mandating a rebrand. So I like it. Looks cleaner, nicer. It's actually a little smaller than the existing sign by about 3 feet lengthwise. So here to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have a sort of a comparison to the scale of the other existing signs?
So we do have at least the Stretch Lab sign, which is the one immediately next door. That is 2 feet 11 3/4 inches tall by 13 feet and 2 5/8 inches long.
Do you have a visual comparison? Do you have anything that sort of visualizes that?
I don't. I think in the existing imagery, yeah, that was the previous sign. I unfortunately do not.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any objections to the sign per se. Personally, I just wondered about the scale, how it's in comparison to the existing signs, that we want to make sure that there's some coherency there in terms of the size of the font and the scale of it versus some of the pre-existing signs to the south.
So I do know, well, I don't have the visual up there. I know that the Stretch Lab text, the stretch, was approved about a year ago. It was limited to 2 feet, and then the lab gets a little taller than that.
Well, yeah, we scale that one down too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So I applaud you making it sort of not as tall. The problem I have is that big blue circle. I think it's, considering we're trying to keep some uniformity with text size, it blows everything out of the water. It's too bold, I think, to me. Where they did if they did an outline of the cake, there was a lit outline of the cake or something, but that big blue circle, I think it just is so out of scale with everything else on that facade. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I really wish we'd had some kind of visual comparison that would help us see that, but that's how it's striking me too. I don't think the font's that bad, but I think that the rendition of a cake seems dominant.
Does it have a measurement on the radius for that plan of the cake in blue? Is there one shown on the elevation?
It looks like the overall height is 78
6.5
inches.
feet. That's a big circle on that facade.
I'm not that comfortable with it without seeing what it's going to do to everything around it.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. I mean, I think we can suggest, just an overall scaling down and, just to make sure we're coherent with the other signs that are, your neighbors there. And because we have pretty consistently asked, especially corporate logos that kind of come prepackaged as in a certain kind of scale. I'm sure that's what you're getting.
Yes, sir, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, a lot has to do with the facade as well, the size there, so we try to fit it into that area. But yes, corporate does try to demand a certain scale so that they get the visibility that they want.
Right, well, the overall, I mean, the sign itself is twice as large as what is ordinanced. I mean, we're at 24 square feet is the ordinance, and we're at 55.
That's correct. So the total, again, I know it's
Just
not,
the sign itself.
yeah, oh, the sign itself, yes, is 55.
55.
As a point of comparison, the stretch lab sign is just under 40. It's 39.45.
Yeah, and we
square
gave them some leeway.
And
And
I
they're
think-
still over.
I think there's been a gradual creep up. Like I was looking in this retail center where Techovus is.
Mm-hmm.
Techovus did a really nice job on doing that. But then you go to the smaller units to the right. You have that juice bar, that's a big number. And then the one that got me, I guess I missed the meeting, was I think it's like the hospital next door to
Christus.
it. That is enormous.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, it's just, we try to be flexible with sign companies, but there is an ordinance there for a reason. And I just don't want it to start to look like some sort of,
What are your thoughts on reducing the circle?
No, I think nothing but cake's length and height is better than what's there currently. I think it's good. What's just thrown us off is that big blue circle.
Okay,
So I think if maybe there's an outline in blue, sort of create the shape. I don't know if it would be less sort of in your face, that kept the logo to some degree similar. I don't know, but I don't like it like it is. Don't think it's appropriate.
I mean, that's something that comes from corporate.
Right.
We can go back to them
Yeah.
and say
understand.
the city's recommending a reduction in the size of the circle.
Yeah,
I don't
we
think we
don't want to
can-
hold you to the 24 square feet. I think that's a
Yeah.
little bit minimum, too much
Well,
of a
especially
minimum.
for the size of.
Right, yeah,
walls.
and we understand that. But, like your neighbor next door, they were much larger. Stretch Lab was much larger. We brought them down to 40. You're at 55 currently. We're not going to ask you to come down to 24, but, I mean, something that just sort of rescales it. I think the sign has all the elements that are appropriate. It's just the scale is a bit much, I think. So if we can suggest that you scale it down to a coherent size. You're not going to really lose I think, to me, you have to shrink all of it down. I wouldn't want you to shrink just the cake, because then it just kind of puts the logo at some sort of incoherency with what the original intent was. So if you can scale all of it down to somewhere under 50 square feet.
Well, I don't even know if you could, because I think the length of the sign is better than what's there. It's smaller in scale. I don't think you can go much smaller than that, otherwise it's going to look too small on the facade. But to me, if they could think of something alternate for my blue circle again I'm talking about, if they could reduce that down maybe half the size, so it still looks like a cake was meant to from above. If we have a smaller radius to that, I think it would be more appropriate. 'Cause I don't think you could scale the whole thing down, otherwise it's going to get lost.
Yeah, if we scale it down, it won't be visible.
And I
All
think the
letters will be-
size of
I
that
mean,
signage-
They're 15 inches already,
Yeah.
so it's pretty small. But, I mean, we can make a recommendation to corporate. I mean, corporate's going to do what they want to do, but I think.
Well, I think the corporate needs to match our ordinance. So, I mean, it
Exactly.
works the other way
Right.
around,
Right,
actually. Yeah.
Right, well, I mean, we go back to them and tell them that you're recommending a scale down. So
Yeah,
that's-
yeah,
that's
and especially, I mean, more than anything else, it just, my sense of it is just not coherent with the rest of the signage.
Okay.
Which we've asked all of them to scale down.
Sure, I understand.
So we just want to keep it coherent.
Okay.
I mean, it's really important for the streetscape, and
Sure.
we care about our corporate partners in
Yes, sir.
Alma
So
Heights.
I'm clear, it's reducing the actual cake, the blue circle portion only? Is that what we're?
I mean, if you can accomplish it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we really can't do much more with the letters because they're already at 15 inches, so,
I think you've got to go back to corporate,
well,
tell them what
exactly.
we've said.
right.
And what other alternates they're going to come back with that solves that blue circle problem. Because I think
Yeah.
your length and your height is fine. And again, you can't do any smaller because it won't look
Correct.
right.
Right.
So proportions on the length and the height, I think, are fine.
Okay.
Just we need to see what corporate will allow you to do
Sure.
with the blue.
Well, whatever you will allow us to do.
Well, then have a look at it knowing that that's too big. 6.5 feet for a circle.
Yeah,
is too
no, I get it, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we'll go back to the drawing board and then we'll re-present to Tyler.
Okay, so we're needing a motion, I guess, to table this for the moment.
Yeah, I would say either the options are reduce it to a certain size now or table it, come back.
That's up to you. However you want to handle it, we'll go and we'll take your
Yeah,
lead.
if we can do that, we'll table this. Let me go back to corporate,
Okay.
let them know what the city's requirements are and ask them to redesign it. And then we'll present it to Tyler again and kind of go from there.
Are you good with that, Adam?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll make a motion to table this matter, case number 10468.
Just to clarify for the applicant, so if it does get tabled, we can look at it as staff, but that would still come back to the ARB
Okay?
at the next month's meeting. So just,
Yeah, for final approval.
I
Yes,
second.
Yep.
yes, correct.
You good with that, Ashley?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
You got a second?
I second Mr.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Appreciate it.
Take care, have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Tyler?
thank you, Mr. Chair. For our second case tonight, we have case number 1047S, request of Don Noble of Pancoast Properties, the applicant, for permanent signage at 5917 Broadway. This is for the Bear Needleworks business. Property in question, highlighted on the screen, is zoned Business District B1. It's at the corner of Broadway Street and Ogden Lane. And again, this is for permanent signage. Here's an aerial overview of the site with the business location marked with the red square. Here are the existing conditions. Little context on this, the applicant did come in for the Bear Needleworks sign, the white sign, which complies and is the same style as the signs and the rest of the business. So those historically haven't needed to come to ARB. So that sign was permitted as part of the permit package. They had included the window signage, which was marked as requiring a separate permit. Not sure if the wires got crossed there, but the request tonight is for the window signage, the decals. Those are currently installed today. So the request would be to allow them to keep it up as is, or change it, or take it down, would be the results of this. Again, the wall sign is okay and permitted through the city. The window sign is the sign coming before the ARB tonight for consideration. You see the window signage on the front, split up by the wall in the middle, and then on the side of the building, primarily in the middle of the three windows, and a little bit of the sign on either of the three sides, the two sides. Sign specifications, this is a white vinyl window sign, 7 by 7, each of these for 49 square feet. City's code does allow window signage such as this, but it has to be, per code, the lesser of 10% of the window space or 3.5 square feet, whichever is less. So with respect to code analysis here, the 24.5, so for the front, 24.5 square feet per window, that window sign is split up between two windows, does exceed the 3.5 square foot maximum. And then for the side, the exact square footage of the middle window was not provided, but as you can see, it takes up the majority of the middle window, so I'm certainly over the 3.5 square feet or 10% allotted. There's no public notice required with this case, and do we have the applicant in the audience? This one.
Hello, my name is Raymond Welder, and this is my mom.
Catherine Welder.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Sure.
And yeah, it's an adhesive decal. We had noticed similar businesses with adhesive decals, so we went ahead with it. It does take a majority of the window they're on, but we think it's tasteful, and we've gotten positive feedback about it, and so yeah, we'd like to petition to keep it.
Okay, board, any comments?
I think it's a slippery slope. We've talked about this a lot with decals on windows over the years, and people put them up without any approval like this. I think it's too big. I think you could have just as nice I would be fine if you had like a smaller version of that maybe is in the center of each window that create like a pattern to it, but you've got a great sign up above that notifies where the location is. So I know in that location it's sort of, a few things are tucked away in there, but I think your main signage is pretty apparent. We've been trying to discourage from, we've had years of folks just putting all types of sales stuff on that, was it that massage place we had down the road, and there's the restaurant they put, it looks like going to Benidorm or something, they got floor-to-ceiling colored stuff. So I think, I don't think it's appropriate myself, and I think it's a slippery slope if we allow it. I think it needs to be looked at, redesigned, and that's just my opinion.
I am recalling another case where we asked the applicant to remove excess decals that didn't comply, so I think for consistency, I agree
With Lindsay?
with Lindsay.
Okay. Adam, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think the design itself is okay, but I think it is too big, and as you saw, I mean, it's way out of the scope of what's allowed. And I agree, it's a slippery slope, and I do remember we made somebody else that takes them off and redo it, so I think that's probably where I'm at.
I think it'd be done tastefully. I mean, again, you've got a lot of windows to look at there, and I know is that we try not to be sort of punitive in what we do when we have decisions like this. We really try to look at it because it's a business, and you have a graphic or something you want. But I just think in this location, you've got a lot of opportunity with that large window facade that you could do something a little different that's maybe, again, centered to each, and it could be smaller, but, with a needlework design type of logos that you have. But I just think it's too much.
Clay? Yeah, these are really hard for us, because we really try to be a board that assists people towards their goals here in Alma Heights, whether it's our business partners or our neighbors in the residential realm. It puts us in a tough spot to sort of have to retroactively make a call. I mean, it would have been a lot easier if we could have had this discussion to begin with, and so that y'all could have been informed about, how we see things and how we try to treat the streetscape. We think windows are really important in our businesses and how they present themselves. And so, look, I think the design is great, and I might have been okay on the front end to maybe have a little bit more scale. But now we're kind of in a tough spot, and I really hate that. I just think it's hard for us to ask you to redo it. But, I sense the board is pretty firm about this, and what are your thoughts about? I want to participate. I want you to participate in the conversation with us so we can kind of come to a conclusion that's best for you.
Well, I think one of the things was we got our wires crossed with the contractor. We've never done this before, so we kind of bumbled around and got our wires crossed. And that was thrown up, and believe it or not, we get a lot of people coming in looking for other businesses. The space that we actually are occupying right now was very clearly a physical therapist, so we get a lot of people coming in still. Some people think we're Quest Diagnostics.
I did physical therapy there.
Yes, so we get a lot of that, and then Bare Needleworks, I guess we could be a tattoo artist, or, an adjunct of Quest with the needles. I mean, we get a lot of people looking for blood work.
Wow.
So they wander in. And I don't personally have a problem with scaling it down. I really don't. We do not want to be a problem. We weren't trying to be a problem.
We understand that.
We get it.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
We don't perceive it as a problem. It's just a difficulty. And none of these decisions exist in a vacuum. That's the part of the problem that we face. And we want to try to be as fair with everybody as we possibly can. That's the hard part for us. And I hope you understand that.
We understand.
Yeah.
We really do. So if it takes taking it down, rescaling it, and putting it back up, we're okay with that.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for understanding, because this is not easy for us to have to go through this for your sake, basically. But we appreciate your consideration on this. We really do. Do you have any further comments, or do you have anything else you want to?
What would be an appropriate scale down, would you all say?
Lindsay, you had a couple of thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think if you just want to have the single logo, are those window panes, are they about 4 feet wide? Do you know, or 5 feet?
I think they're about 90 inches tall. I don't know.
How wide they
So
are.
probably 4.5 feet, something like that, I would guess. The 12 or 12. Yeah, about 4.5 feet wide, those panels. So I think you could take that same logo and, just a suggestion, and reduce it down, so it's probably 3 feet diameter maybe, or 30-inch diameter, enough that would then fit within, you know, give yourself a good 9 inches or so at the extremity, but scale the whole thing down so it's just in the center. That's something I look at maybe doing that.
And the same concept around the post. There's the two wings that are off of
I
that.
don't think it wouldn't work like that. I think you'd have to have, because this is, the one on the right's the side alley coming to the parking lot, right, yeah. So I think that one, I would maybe do, maybe have two of them, maybe a bit smaller, maybe 2 foot diameter, either side of the one with the front entry with the post.
So just doing the same thing on three
Just
panels?
reduce the whole thing down, yeah.
How does that sound to y'all? If you had 3 window panes that were kind of the same
One
concept?
centered on this side, to notify when you're coming in, and then have maybe 2 smaller ones then on either side of the window. Which is your main door? Is the door to the left your main door coming in, or you're the right door?
The right door.
You're the right door.
Is
So
there
maybe
a-
just have one on that right by the door when you're coming in, to not signify just having one on the left side of that door.
What's the limitation, y'all? Is it one per facade, per direction it's facing? Or is it one window decal, one sign?
Per window, I think.
For the strip center, you get one for the storefront and then one directional. The that doesn't, some allowance for logos and business hours and things like that. But something like this is not, it would be just considered exceeding the number. And the reason, if you remember the coffee business, that's one of the reasons why the board suggested that revision to code was basically to limit the number of decals on windows.
Right.
We have that same,
In sequence, across fascia, yeah.
we have the same thing with that one behind the Starbucks, that doctor's office.
Yep,
They had like very little, you really couldn't see it from the street.
right.
So to me, if you did that, then with that going on that ruling, if you just have one maybe on the window pane to the left side of the door to notify that where you're going in, and maybe make that a bit smaller.
Just scale your main logo, and then instead of the 2 wings, scale that left window to the door with that, just scale down. So it's not just, side by side going either way, but, or cut in half, but just bring it down to a more workable size that's complementary to your door entry. It's saying something about who you are and, and expressing it at the door. I think makes some sense, but, I mean, it's, we do try to limit how many windows are decaled, and we do have some size limits, but we can work with you on that size. We have some discretion about that. I mean, it doesn't have to be at the absolute minimum that they're talking about, 10% of the area of the window. We can discuss a scale that's a little bit better for you, that could help you have a little bit more drama to it, if that's what you're looking for.
And I think it'll give you the identifier as well, because you get identification of the door you're going in, to people walking by. Well, people usually associate a logo near a door, but you'd have that left-hand side of that right door. And then having one in the center going in, I don't think you're going to lose anything in terms of impact, to be honest. Because to be honest, sometimes when something's too big, you don't see it. You know, if it's too big, you don't see the detail that you have in the logo, which if you make it more condensed, you actually, visually, you get to see it more around, try to just up and down the whole size.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Is that, so I guess we need to make a motion about this, so that we can kind of direct y'all to return to us with a plan for kind of what we've talked about?
Yeah.
Is that okay for y'all?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll,
So it's at a table?
what do we, well, we do need to redirect how the signage is being used now. You know, our motion would have to include that we're taking down current window decals and then representing a condensed signage in the window. And again, I think we'd be very amenable to something that's a little bit, scaled a little bit bigger than what the minimum is, or the maximum, actually. So, you know, we just want to give you some leeway on that, present the idea to us. But I think we do need to formulate our motion that reflects.
We need to do it in two parts, don't we? We need to
Yes.
deny the request.
Yes.
And then we need to present what we proposed.
Yes, yes.
You got that, Adam?
You ready for that, Adam?
I think this is yours, Lindsay.
Okay,
Go,
all
go,
right.
Lindsay, do it.
I'll have a crack.
All right,
Let me have a
thank
go.
you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Regarding case number 1047S, request of Don Noble, Pancoast Properties, applicant for the permanent signage, 5917 Broadway, the Bare Needle Works. Board denies the ability to keep the signage in its current form and request to resubmit with two separate signs, one on each facade, one centered to the three-pane window on the side of the property and one to the left-hand side of the entry door to the property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Sorry about that. Tyler.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our last signed case tonight, we have case number 1048S, request of Abdul Kadar Kazimi of Stallion Signs, the applicant, for permanent signage at 6411 Broadway or the Visual Comfort and Company building. The building in question is zoned Business District 1. It's located on the west side of Broadway between College Boulevard and Ensley Avenue. This is a request for permanent signage. Here's a aerial where that red pin is. Of course, the building is now there since that aerial imagery hadn't been updated since that building had gone in. Here's the Visual Comfort and Company building. If you recall, this was also just about a year ago. This business came forward with a signage request. The ARB did approve the signage on the front, but there were two additional signs requested on either side, on the north and south side, and those were not approved at that time. Those were wall signs. The proposed sign tonight is a projecting sign on the north side of the building. Again, as if you're looking at it from Broadway, the projecting sign is at the appropriate minimum height and doesn't project beyond what the code minimum allows, but it is an additional sign for a business beyond just the one that they're allowed on the front. So that is the scope of the request tonight. Here's the side elevation. If you're looking at it from the north, it's kind of hard to see, but at the top right, this is the projection sign. Here are the sign specifications. And again, the sign size and height does comply with the city's code, but this is an additional sign in addition to the one sign on the front that they have. This similar type of request had come forward about a year ago for two wall signs that was denied, but this applicant would like to request approval of this projecting sign on the north side of the building. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have, and we have the applicant in the audience.
Can we see the visual of the projection sign? I'm kind of a
Yes,
little bit
sir.
confused on how this is oriented. So the red square is the sign?
The red square is just highlighting where the sign is, the little black sign here.
Yep.
That projection is the building, or the sign.
And that's a pedestrian walkway, right? Between the.
That's correct.
Churro place and.
What is it, what's it doing? What's its purpose?
I think the parking's in the back of that building.
Yeah, right.
On this elevation, they've added, are they requesting adding lighting above the sign, the existing sign? Because that lighting's not there.
Yeah.
It's
that part
not
of it?
there. I think that might just be part of
That's
the
just a
rendering.
rendering.
Yeah, that's not part of the request at this time.
So really, all we're looking at is, that's what threw me off, because that doesn't look like what it's currently, I thought that was the back for the second.
Okay.
I thought it was the side. So that, they're really only requesting that blade sign is really what we're talking about today.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What's it doing?
I think that
get it.
might be best
All right,
directed
come on
to the
up, sorry,
applicant.
sorry about that. We should have asked you, right. Thanks for coming.
My name is Abdul from Stallion Signs.
Thanks for being
I'm
here.
to speak on behalf of the client. Like it was mentioned, the parking is on the side over there, and so they have received feedback that some people are finding it a little bit difficult to locate the door,
Okay,
especially because the main sign is on the front, and then they have a side entrance as well, I believe. So the purpose of the sign, it is non-illuminated, and I don't believe as of right now there are any plans to add any additional lighting around it either. It is simply for the purpose of trying to direct some traffic.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm fine with
yeah, everybody, okay, yeah. All right, let's go for it, somebody.
All right, I'd like to make a motion in case 1048S, the request of Abdul Qadir Kasimji.
Yes, ma'am?
SMG?
Kasimji of Stallion Signs for permanent signage at 6411 Broadway, approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming, appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for making it
Okay.
easy.
I'm
Have a
glad
great day.
I'm glad we weren't hard on you.
All right, now we're entering the demolition review portion of the agenda tonight. Next on the agenda, we have case number 1041F, request of Jay Corder, the applicant, representing Hank Cavender, the owner, for the significance review of the existing main structure and compatibility review of the proposed design located at 530 Corona Avenue in order to demolish 100% of the existing structure and construct a new single-family residence under demolition review ordinance number 1860. The property in question is zoned SFB. It's located on the south side of Corona Avenue, just east of Alma Heights Boulevard. Again, this is to demolish the existing structure and build a new structure. This is a full demolition review, so it's significance and compatibility, significance of the existing structure and compatibility review of the proposed structure. Some images of the existing conditions of the existing structure on the site. And the existing site plan on the left and the proposed site plan on the right. There's the proposed front elevation. The rear elevation. The east elevation. And the west elevation. There's the proposed roof plan, the first level. And then the second level of the roof in the front of the structure. There's a rendering of the proposed replacement structure. the lot coverage and floor area ratio, both of which do comply with the city's code of ordinances. There's the existing streetscape. The proposed streetscape. Structure is currently being reviewed by staff. I believe there's a couple minor comments to be addressed that are left, but staff does not anticipate any deviation from the city's code. And this case is tentatively scheduled to be heard by City Council on August 10th, pending a recommendation from the board. All property owners within 200 feet were notified of this request for the board tonight. To date, staff has received feedback, 3 letters of support from inside that 200-foot buffer, and 1 letter of opposition, and it's not received any feedback from outside the 200-foot buffer. Staff is happy to answer any questions you may have. We also have the applicant in the audience, should you have questions for the applicant.
Applicant here? Yeah. Come on.
Good evening, board. Great to see everybody again tonight. I'm
Thanks
Dave
for coming.
Isaacs. I'm the builder
Appreciate
with a homeowner, Hank Cavender.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for being here. Looks great. Any questions?
Good looking house.
Nope.
The only question I've got is on the attached garage side, that's set back enough in terms of our ordinances about attached?
Yes.
So if, for lots that are wider than 65 feet, you are allowed an attached garage. It has to be set back 18 feet from the
Okay.
front
All right.
facade.
That's all my question. That's all I have.
It
Anybody
is, I
else?
was going over it with the plan reviewer. It complies with the city's code.
Okay. All right, great. Adam, thoughts?
Looks good.
Ashley, everybody? Everybody? Anybody here want to speak about it? Hope not. Sure looks pretty. Okay. All right. Let's do a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve case number 1041F, request of Jay Corder, applicant, representing Hank Cavender for the significance review of the existing main residence and compatibility review at 530 Corona Avenue to demolish 100% of the existing structure and construct a new single-family residence.
Second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Good job. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate
Have
it.
a great evening.
All right, nice and easy. All right. Tyler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the next case on our demolition review portion of the agenda, we have case number 1042F, request of Remo Enterprises LLC, the owner, for the compatibility review of the proposed design located at 103 East Elmview Place in order to construct a new single-family residence under demolition review ordinance number 1860. Property in question is located at the northeast corner of Broadway and Elmview and is zoned single-family A. This is for a new single-family residence. It's currently a vacant lot. A couple years ago, or 3 years ago, the ARB and City Council did go through the compatibility review for a different proposed structure that was approved. However, the structure was never built, so this is a new submittal that's coming forward to the ARB. And again, tonight, since this is a vacant lot, this will just be compatibility review of the new replacement structure. Here are the existing conditions of the lot, of the vacant lot. Existing survey on the left, and then the proposed site plan on the right. The proposed front elevation from Elmview. The rear elevation from the alley. The east elevation. And the west elevation from Broadway. the proposed roof plan. Here's a rendering of the structure. Lot coverage and floor area ratio, both of which do comply with the city's code. Here's the existing streetscape with the vacant lot and the proposed streetscape. Staff has completed plan review and the project does comply with the city's zoning code. This case is tentatively scheduled to hit the August 10th City Council meeting agenda pending a recommendation from the board. All property owners within 200 feet of the subject tract were notified of the public hearing and action tonight. To date, staff has only received one letter of feedback that was neutral on the design of the house. And I just had a question about whether the fence was going to be replaced, which I don't believe is part of the proposal, but not necessarily part of the architectural review. Staff is happy to answer any questions the board may have. And we have the applicant in the audience.
Applicant? Come see us. Welcome.
Hi.
Hey.
Samantha Montoya here representing the owner and Juan Carlos Rodriguez that's helping us with the construction of the house.
Great, great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Board? Comments?
I think it looks great.
It's a nice design for that lot, yeah.
Thank you.
Just one question for me. Can we see sort of the side elevations? So I'm weird about windows and continuity of windows. You've got a lot of nice divided light windows on the front that you're presenting to the street, which look great. And so at least I'm perceiving that some of your side elevation windows are more not divided. Is that what you're presenting? And we'd like to see sort of a continuity of window treatment
On
front to back.
on those windows, not the elongated ones, but the ones in the bigger portion of the house, they will have some division to them. It's just more of a graphical representation on here. Yeah, I understand if, you kind of have the mullions in the windows kind of have that throughout the other windows. The intent is to have that more cohesive throughout.
Yeah, I just think that just really complements. I mean, everything about this is great, I think, and I'm just grateful for such a clean design. And, just to complete it, making sure that you're all the way around with the windows, it just really perfects it, I think. And so hopefully that's where you're headed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I think that it'll probably help the design a little, especially with the change from the brick material to this hardy to the stucco. I think keeping that continuity with that fenestration would be better.
Any other comments? Anybody like to speak? Come forward. Well, we're going to note the time is 6:20, and we're having a public comment part of the hearing. So please come up and introduce yourself.
I'm Guy Hamilton. I live next door. And I just was questioning, the reason I asked about the fence is because the fence that's there now of that property is about a 70-year-old chain link fence with hackberries and so forth growing through it. So there's no plan. I mean, you have to have a permit to put up a fence, so I figured this would be a good time to iron that out. And also there's a deck that you might have noticed on the top of that first floor, on the side that faces all the surrounding properties. So I don't know if that's okay or not, but I was just pointing that out as feedback.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. As to, I don't know if y'all want to address the fence. I mean, it's up to you. Decide that. It's fine.
Okay, the fence just between the properties, I assume. I don't think it has been something that we had really looked at, but I'm sure if the need is there to replace it, it would be a good time. If we were to include it in this construction, can it be like in addition to the proposal, or would it have to be a new permit plan? I'm not sure.
Not as far as we're concerned, but I mean, staff might see it differently.
Yeah, we could, fence permits are pretty simple. We could
Okay.
just handle it as a separate permit easily enough.
It won't require any review from us.
Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments from our friends here that are visiting tonight? All right, it's 6:23, and public hearing is ended. And any other comments from the board before we make a consideration?
Nope.
Everybody good? Okay, I'll hear,
All right, well, in case number 1042F, motion to approve the request of RIMO Enterprises LLC owner for the compatibility review of the proposed design located at 103 East Elmview Place in order to construct a new single-family residence under demolition review ordinance number 1860.
can we add a little verbiage about continuity of windows in there for us, please?
Yeah, with the proviso that the windows have a continuous, what's the word?
Consistent design.
Consistent all the way around the structure.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a 5-minute break? 5-minute break?
Yeah, can we take a break for a second here? We got a long night. Okay, we're gonna, I need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion for a 5-minute break.
Second, any second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, all right, complicated. Take a break.
I get it, I understand.
Okay, let's re-adjourn and continue on through our agenda for this evening. Tyler, will you present our next case?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our next case tonight, we have a final review of a commercial proposal. This is case number 1043F, request of Sean Guess of Fay and Walker Architects, applicant representing George Ames, owner, for the final design review of the proposed modifications to the commercial use structure on the property, located at 5611 Broadway Street, under Chapter 2, Administration for Architectural Review. Property highlighted on the screen is a subject property in the zone Business District B1. It's located on the west side of Broadway Street, north of St. Denis Avenue. And again, this is for a commercial remodel of a portion of the building. Here are the existing conditions. This is the building with the Hanley Wood shop inside of it. They are proposing to remodel the northern portion of the building that's remained vacant for some time. There's a zoom in on the east face of the building, as well as the north face, which should be the side, and a back behind it. Here's the proposed front elevation. There is a proposed walk-up window on the front of the building as well as the side of the building. Just as a side note for some context, a rezone request did go through, or zoning code amendment rather, went through planning and zoning to allow the walk-up window as a land use for food specifically. So that has gone through planning and zoning, was approved by city council. And so from a land use perspective and code perspective, the applicant is now compliant, but they still needed to go through the ARB final review. Here's the proposed elevation on the side, again with the walk-up window. Here's a landscape plan. So the part of the proposal for the ARB tonight would be to redo that empty space on the north side of the building, where that walk-up window on the side is going to be, to make it an attractive space to sit and enjoy your bakery goods and coffee, things of that nature. Here's a rendering of the proposed landscape area. Staff has conducted plan review, and the proposal does comply with the city's zoning code, again, after the amendment to the city's land use chart through planning and zoning and city council. This case is tentatively scheduled to be heard at the August 10th city council meeting, pending a recommendation from the board. Staff did notify all property owners within 200 feet of the subject tract. To date, we have not heard any feedback from the public. We also do have the applicant, the property owner, and the proposed business owner of Tiny's Milk and Cookies in the audience, should you have questions for them.
Okay, come on up. Thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian Dowd here, operator of Tiny's Milk and Cookies, and George Amos, building owner. And
Thanks for being here. Board, come on.
I think it's good. It's good.
I think it looks nice, and having lived in Houston for 14 years, especially with some little kids, looking forward to it. So,
awesome.
Good job.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, what a great thought.
Thanks.
Really, a great use of the property and nice new dynamic for Broadway.
We're excited.
Is it like cafe? Is it?
Yeah, it's a walk-up kind of all-day bakery,
Oh, great.
but ideally, kind of bringing the community together in the side garden. But it's homemade pastries, savory
No, it's
breakfast,
perfect.
coffee,
Perfect location.
and anything you want.
More of that, please.
Yes. Oh,
Well
and
done.
chocolate chip cookies, of course.
Yeah, great. Love it.
I like the attention you made to the landscaping too. I think that's really good. A lot of people sort of forget about that. And we'll do something out there, but you've obviously thought about it with the flow, and so. Great.
Yeah, my partners are landscape design architects from Houston, out of the Thompson Hanson business, so they take a lot of passion in that.
Great.
Fantastic. And anyone in the And our neighbors here like to speak about this project? Any commentary, thoughts? Hooray for our team? Yep. Thumbs up? Okay, that's a good comment. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yep. All right. Mr. Chairman, with regard to case number 1043F, request for Sean Guest of Fair and Walker Architects, applicant representing Joe James, owner, for the final design review of the proposed modifications, the commercial use and structure of property located at 5611 Broadway Street. Make a motion to approve as presented.
Motion and a second have been offered. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate this.
Good evening.
Yeah. Okay, Lindsay, you got to skedaddle. Get out of here. Let the record be reflected. Lindsay Thorne is recusing himself for this particular case, and he's presenting. So we have that as in the record, on the record. Come on, Lindsay. Or Tyler first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our final two cases tonight, these will be preliminary review. We will have a public hearing and receive any feedback from the public, and the board can give feedback to the applicant. There, however, won't be any action taken on these tonight.
Thank you.
For our first case, we have case number 1044P, request of Lindsay Thorne of the Thorne Group, the applicant, representing Tracy W. Druce, owner, for the preliminary design review of a proposed townhome development on the properties located at 212, 216, and 220 Route Street, 325 and 329 Campman Avenue, and 5501 North New Braunfels Avenue. The properties in question are highlighted together on the screen. These properties have been replatted and will be eventually assigned one address, but they have gone through the replat process through Planning and Zoning and City Council. They are zoned multifamily district, and they're located in between Route Street and Campman Avenue, and then west of North New Braunfels Avenue. And again, this is for a new townhome development. Here are the existing conditions looking north from Campman Avenue, and then looking south up from Route Street. Here's the existing plat. The proposed site layout of the townhome units, as well as a common area pool. A rendering of the proposed site layout. Proposed elevations for the townhomes. Elevation or renderings of the elevations. And this is a preliminary review, so of course it would be subject, the final project would be subject to final review by the ARB and City Council. Staff would conduct a full technical review to make sure that the site plan complies with city zoning code and building regulations. Also, this property is located within the special flood hazard area, so floodplain development permit would be required. That would be reviewed by the city's third-party engineer, Ardura Engineering, to make sure that all the city's floodplain mitigation requirements for the building and surrounding properties are met. Staff is happy to answer. Forgot public notification. All property owners within 200 feet of the subject tracks here were notified of the hearing tonight. Today, staff has received one letter of support and one letter in opposition. Staff is happy to answer any questions you may have about this proposal. We also have the applicant, Mr. Lindsay Thorne, here, should you have questions for him.
Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you.
To the other side.
So, this property, I think a lot of people know where this property is. We're looking at putting together 10, maybe 11. We haven't decided whether we're going to keep that communal area yet, but there's been a big call for, this is like a unique design that I've been doing multifamily now for almost 30 years in the high-end sector, and I've had a lot of people come to me over the years and said that if we could have something that's more of a communal gated area that has, it has like a concierge lifestyle where, if they have another property somewhere else, someone will take care of the place for them, checking their Amazon packages and what have you. And what we've done differently on this one is we've turned the sort of the front, as it were, in towards that driveway, the Muse in the center. And so service access, no one actually has to enter on the property. Service access can be on Route Street and on Campbell Street. So what was the front yard is now the backyard. So it also gives each of the units nice backyards, which a lot of multifamily projects don't have. So we've really tried to hit all the spots where we've heard in the past. Detached units too. Some way, elevation-wise, this style, which is sort of a Kensington, Belgravius type of style of home, looks better in a row format, but we as Americans don't like having properties touching each other if we can avoid it. So that's why we have space between each of them. So that's basically it. Options, there'll be a very 2 to 3 story options. We'll have probably another 8 or 9 different floor plan types, whether you want the bedroom up or down or on the roof, whatever you want to put it. So we're looking at getting a sort of a cross section of the aesthetics. Interiors will probably change depending on which client body, but a few windows may change, but basically this will control the design, style, and the build for it.
How much you have to lift out of that floodplain? I mean, I see that you're using some of that floodway with
in the plan northwest corner, which is the northwest, it's going to come up about 2 feet.
2 feet?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
We had the same situation when we were looking over at where the dentist office is right now. We had the same thing. We had to put up, when we looked at a apartment project there, we had to push it back up the site. So
is that parking lot part of your plan, or is that just sort of a concept?
Yeah, so that'll be the driveway. You come in and off New Braunfels. It'll be a gated driveway. You come in off New Braunfels, and that's how you go into the 2-car garages for each of the units, and that's where the front doors will be also. And it gives a nice driveway there for guest parking as well. If you've got people staying the rules we have in Alamo Heights, they can't park on the street, and we never have enough room for guest parking in developments like this. So we've made it generous enough to have room for guest parking. If people got 2 or 3 people staying overnight, and it's off the streets.
So Lindsay, am I reading it right? Are you fencing off the street-facing facades on all 3 sides?
Correct. So we're gonna have a stucco wall basically surround the property. We'll have landscaping, as per the landscape ordinance, outside the fence, and we'll also have then trees and landscaping inside the fence. But yeah, that'll create a secure for that location there.
Is that out piece on the northeast corner, is that part of your plan too, or is that?
The existing apartment there? No, that stays as is.
Is that's vacant, right, or is there?
It's like 2-story. I think there's maybe 4
okay.
units there.
Yeah, okay.
I believe it's 4 units.
All right.
Tyler, could you
Comment?
go through the other rendering? Just help me out, where are we standing looking at this view?
That elevation would be if you're standing on Campman Street in the middle of the street, looking directly due north. And again, we've shown 3 stories throughout, but if people want a 2-story, we'll give them a 2-story. And they have the options to have balconies, rooftops, or not.
So is this the backyard we're looking?
It's the backyard. We're looking at the backyard elevation here.
Or is your concept sort of that urbanist, you can't really tell the front from the back kind of concept?
Right.
Or are you specific?
Right. So what we've done is we've tried to address the streetscape more than most. It does 2 things. Once, it gives a really nice backyard for each of the units, but most sort of front yard, backyards, you've got the garage door facing the street. And so we've tried to do a much nicer sort of facade that really responds to the street more than just having a series of garage doors.
I think I'm personally struggling with the backyard being the front-facing facades, where you just have the backyard fence basically facing the street. I understand why, because if you didn't, you'd basically delete the backyard and make it a front yard, but I don't know anywhere in Alma Heights that has that, but I'm sure there's somewhere. It just seems.
We did one on Elizabeth Road Townhomes on the corner of Elizabeth and Notty Bromples. We did one there a few years ago, but they have that. We thought it just solves a lot of problems because it creates security for the development. You know, we don't have a series of garage doors facing the street. I think just gives a nice, especially when we have all the landscaping we're going to have inside and out. It's really going to, I think, really complement that streetscape.
But it'll be inside the fence?
We'll have them we need them outside and we'll have them inside too. But they'll be outside the fence. We need that by city code ordinance. I think we can have a tree like every 15 feet, and we'll have other landscaping out there as well, something like that, or every 12 feet. 25? Oh, good.
What are you thinking for materials on the exterior?
So the structures themselves are all going to be stucco, and the wall will also be stucco. And what we'll probably end up doing is we'll probably end up staggering the wall rather than having it sloping one. I prefer to have it more staggered with a drop to it as it goes along. We'll change that before we get to final.
Any other comments? It's a preliminary review, so we don't have anything to make a motion regarding this. And I'd just like to ask everybody from our visitors tonight, like to comment about this project. If so, thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, thank you.
That's it. Okay, Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the last item on tonight's agenda, we have case number 1045P, request of Brad Knoll, applicant representing Trebe Sasser Jr., owner, for the preliminary design review of a proposed multifamily residential development on the properties located at 102 Arcadia Place and 141 Grove Place. The properties in question highlighted on the screen are both zoned multifamily district. They're in between Arcadia and Grove and on the east side of Broadway Street. Again, this is for a new proposed multifamily development. Here are pictures of the existing conditions kind of all around the treehouse apartment development. Here's the existing site survey. I should say this is the current treehouse development, and then the St. Peter's School as well. Demolition plan, all the buildings in the site would be demolished with this proposal. Here's the proposed site plan. The floor plan has been grayed out by city staff, standard for what we typically do. The applicant will have a few slides that I believe he's going to share at the end that do show some of those floor plans, and the applicant was okay with that. But just as a note, that's why they do appear to be grayed out here. Here are the proposed elevations for the project. The north elevation from Arcadia Place, the south elevation from Grove, the east elevation looking at the development from Cleveland Court, and the west elevation looking at the alley on the Broadway side of the development. There's a rendering of the proposal from the northwest on Arcadia. running from the northeast. View from the southeast from Grove. And from the southwest along Grove. There's the proposed tree preservation and removal plan. There's the proposed tree plan, the street tree proposal, as well as the trees interior to the site. The proposed landscape plan. The concept lighting plan. And a material inspiration board provided by the applicant. As well as planning inspiration imagery. So, of course, this would be subject to final reviews by the ARB and ultimate approval by City Council. One thing that's key to note with this project, there are kind of a few processes running at the same time, namely the ARB process, preliminary and final, and then the Planning and Zoning and City Council specific use permit or SUP and replat. So the replat is just to combine the two lots into one. The SUP, however, is to kind of package together the sum total of the development request for variances from the city zoning code. So that would go before Planning and Zoning and City Council and obviously could have some impact on the final design of this proposal. Applicant could get into more of the specifics in the SUP request, but generally speaking, and certainly the largest part of it is the height request. Typically, this property zone multifamily would be allowed to go up to 35 feet, because it's not directly on the Broadway frontage. They are requesting to go up to 65 feet in height, and that is measured from average grade of 724, which is essentially the highest and lowest point along Arcadia, the higher side of the property of the proposed foundation. So that is the height proposal. There are other elements in there in the SUP related to, for example, street tree placement. Typically, those are required to be out in the right-of-way. This would allow them to use street trees on their property to count towards the street tree, to satisfy the street tree ordinance. So there are elements packaged together in the SUP, zoning elements that are going before P&Z and City Council that certainly could impact the design. So obviously this proposal would be pending specific use permit and replat approval as well. And then should all, the SUP replat be approved, this go through preliminary and final review by the ARB and City Council. Then, of course, staff would be doing a full-blown site review, site plan and building plan review, flood review, or not necessarily flood, but drainage review, all the typical engineering reviews required for commercial developments like this. So, let's see. All property owners within 200 feet of the subject tract were notified of tonight's request. To date, staff has received 7 letters of support, including from the property owners themselves, within the 200 feet, and 6 letters of opposition within 200 feet. I will note that we did receive 5 additional letters of opposition from outside the 200-foot radius, and the property owner did prepare, or not the property owner, one of the neighbors within the 200-foot radius did prepare some thoughts and concerns and suggestions on the proposal that's been shared with the ARB. And there were a number of property owners, many of which you see on the screen, that co-signed those. There were 7 additional property owners that aren't reflected in here or in those 5 outside the 200-foot radius that also co-signed that feedback. So that is kind of a snapshot of where we are now. We do have the applicant in the audience. They have a few additional slides that they prepared that I think we'll switch to now, and then we can conduct the public hearing and go from there.
Thank you, Tyler. Applicants, come forward, please.
Good evening, Brad Canali with Embry. This is Joel Albee, also with Embry. We're going to kind of go through this presentation. Just forward and backwards. Okay. Thank you. So a little bit of history on how the project. This project's been being discussed with Ridgemont, that's Treep Sasser Jr., since for almost a year now. They approached us back in August about whether we would like to look at redevelopment of this property. We mulled it over internally, knowing that it is in Embry's backyard, about whether we wanted to try to approach the redevelopment of this. So this has been going on, and conversations have been being had about how to redevelop this for almost a year now. And we think, that the proposal we have for you tonight is kind of the conclusion of some of those conversations and a lot of the studying and analysis that we've done. The site is bound by Arcadia to the north, Grove to the south, Cleveland to the east, and a 15-foot alleyway, an alleyway owned by the city of Alamo Heights between the retail and the multifamily. Roughly, it's 3.675 acres. It's roughly 500 by 320 feet. As you see on the site plan, when we get into that, we looked at a lot of different variations of where our front door is. How does this property flow? How does it operate? When you look here, you see a very nice rectangle, but as I get to the next slide, it is a rectangle, but with a lot of challenges. In the upper right-hand corner to the lower right-hand corner, the site falls 19 feet, which presents some challenges when you're trying to do something of density and scale. Additionally, it slopes 12 feet back to the west from the high point in the upper right-hand corner to the high point in the upper left-hand corner. So there's some topography challenges, how we address those, how we screen a garage, where do we access the site. And so all of those factors came into play as we settled on a site plan after looking at literally dozens of different renditions. This is a copy of the best example of everything that's culminated into the site plan. Numerous things went into this, where our front door is. So we kind of settled on the front door, the leasing office being the upper left-hand corner on Arcadia. We looked at sense of arrival, how traffic would come to that. That's a lighted intersection at Broadway and Arcadia, so we felt that was the best place for the leasing center. There is existing on-street parking, head-in parking right there at that same location. So we are asking to keep that head-in parking there. It'll be slightly adjusted, but conceptually that same head-in parking is there. Other options that we looked at on the site plan was whether the leasing center could be in the lower right-hand corner where Grove and Cleveland come. Unfortunately, that's a very difficult intersection to have a leasing center just because there's a lot of odd configurations of the traffic lanes that go through there. So eventually we did settle on the upper left-hand corner. The property is a complete wrap. As we talk in multifamily terms of wraps and podiums and garden-style developments, the parking garage is completely screened entirely by units with the exception of the 2 entrances to the garage. We decided to have 2 entrances to the garage, one on Arcadia, kind of in the upper middle of the page, and then one on Cleveland Street to the right. We feel that having 2 access points, full ingress and egress with gates, will allow the dispersion of traffic. Another thing that we did, and this was this was 100% on Embry. We weren't requested by any city staff to look at this, was to provide, how do we mitigate traffic concerns? How do we mitigate traffic flow concerns? There is, unfortunately, the retail to our west is, in my opinion, underparked. Parking there for those businesses, a lot of that parking, and especially in the afternoon, will park on Arcadia where there is no designated parking lanes. And so the site, by deed restriction, has a 25-foot setback. It goes back to 1908. It was amended in 1923, I believe. But it's a 25-foot setback, one that we were not willing to challenge. We talked to several title companies about this, and we just decided to keep the 25-foot setback. So that really shrunk the site, which obviously affected our density. But within the setback, what we want to do is move the existing sidewalk, which obviously we'll rebuild, make it wider and bring the sidewalk into the site, give the city a public access easement, licensing agreement. We'll work through that with staff, but then provide approximately 50 public on-street parking spaces on 3 sides on Arcadia, Cleveland, and Grove, and then additional parking in the 15-foot alleyway on the western side of the property. These will be public spaces. We do not need them. We are entirely self-parked within the development at a parking ratio of 1.65 per unit, which is more than ample parking. We do anticipate some residents having multiple cars, so we do have excess parking. Our typical ratio for a development like this would be closer to 1.55, but we are adding additional parking within the garage. So that's kind of how we envision the site will allow the parking that's already occurring on Arcadia and Grove and Cleveland to pull into the existing right-of-way, and then we'll kind of redefine the streetscape along there. When other things about the site, we looked at preservation of some of the existing heritage trees. The lower left-hand corner, we envision that to kind of be a grove of some sort, have some public seating in there. Hopefully the retail gets redeveloped in the near future or in the future sometime, and maybe a restaurant or a cafe would be developed there and be able to utilize that more for public seating. So some of that will be gated off, but a lot of it will remain public. As the site got compressed, due to the setback, we looked at where do we put our swimming pool while still keeping the garage completely screened from the street. So the swimming pool is on the southern side. We're trying to really activate Grove Street because that is the higher elevation or higher building height of the property, and also have an additional landscape courtyard down there. Trash, I know that's a big issue. The current alleyway is the trash area for the retail. All of their trash bins sit outside in that alley. We want to continue to use that alley and have our trash pickup there on the left-hand side of the building up against the alleyway. Additionally, this is a 5-story building with a 6-story component. We did that to keep the roof line constant, but also avoid massive retaining walls within the building. So the area shaded in the left-hand corner where the site drops off the 12 feet is a 5-story with a basement, so 6-story elevation. And then the area along Grove Street, as it slopes down that 19 feet of fall, is a 6-story. That allows us to bring the units down to the ground floor, avoid massive retaining walls. There's some significant trees along within the setback that will also be preserved in lieu of building a retaining wall that would cause those to be eliminated. This next slide, I think, is important. We started studying where to access the garage, especially on Arcadia. There's an existing driveway to the right of where we're proposing that goes straight into the existing house at 115 Arcadia. So we decided to move our garage entrance over to the left. The grades allow us to slope the garage entrance down, coming out of the garage towards the street, and the residence across the street sits up about 6 feet. At least it has about 7 or 8 stairs, so it sits up high. So eliminate the headlights shining into that house. We don't allow lifted trucks and cars to park in our garage. There's certain height requirements. So we just don't have the problem of gigantic F-250s with 40-inch tires parking in our garage. They don't fit. So the headlights should not be an issue shining into that house or any of the others. There's a little example down here on the lower right-hand corner showing that with the garage ramp sloping down and the house across the street sitting up. I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Joel. He's going to talk about the vertical architecture. Our architect with Lake Flato is not able to attend tonight due to the rescheduling of the meeting. He apologizes, but you're in good hands with Joel.
Good evening. Sorry that you get to hear from me instead of Todd Washer. He would probably speak much more eloquently about the design and effort that they've put into this effort for the design here. I also would like to recognize Rialto Studio, great landscape architects that we've been working with on this. And we do have Michael Rangel here if there are any questions on the landscape side or tree mitigation side. Advancing. So, as with all Lake Flato designs, they like to focus on contextual responses to the area. So the material palette was really important for us as we looked at this project. They looked at what are the materials you see along Broadway, what are the materials you see around in this neighborhood, and that's really how we settled on this palette of brick, stucco, some wood tone siding. Because we're a 5-story building, we can't actually, from a code standpoint, put wood on the exterior, but we can put some siding that is made to look like wood on the exterior, and then also some fiber cement board and batten siding. And because Lake Flato is really concerned about the details, that board and batten siding they're proposing is not your typical just 1-inch vertical every 12 inches horizontal. They're proposing kind of a more randomized detail here that creates varying widths and creates great shadow lines and interest on the exterior. I think also of note on the brick, there's going to be a blend of bricks here, similar to what you might have seen on our project at Tin Top, down at the Borden Creamery by Pearl. I remember I personally did not work on that, but some other folks in our office that got to talk about how often David Lake was down there helping the mason figure out which brick to put where, and so very much concerned about the craft of this building as we go forward. Another detail component that we're excited to incorporate into this is looking at doing recessed windows on the project, because we'll have 2x6 framed exterior walls. The idea is to then reduce the framing around the windows to a 2x4 so we can get an extra 2 inches of recess around each of our windows that we think will help, relate the character of this building and the detail to the nice custom homes that are in the neighborhood and the level of quality that people in Alamo Heights expect of their community. So as we advance looking at the exterior elevations, the top elevation there is along Arcadia. To the right is the alleyway, to the left is Cleveland. So you can see how that road slopes down that 12 feet to the right, and you get that basement level condition. So you do get 6 levels along the alleyway of the building there. That kind of next brick block that you see there, I know it's kind of hard to see at this scale on the screen, but is our leasing office, and then the large courtyard recess. The darker rectangle in the center of that elevation is the garage entry. So one of the things Lake Flato tried to do on this exterior elevation, it's a long elevation, is to really try to break up the massing with the various uses of these materials. So we get brick blocks at the base, some stucco volumes that go 4 or 5 stories along here, and then some infill in the gaps of the vertical siding that then makes its way into the kind of top level of the building, and which also has a roof overhang. The idea is that the soffit of that roof overhang would be that wood tone product. The recesses around the balconies would be also that wood tone product, so you get the introduction of this warm material that has a very residential feel as you go around. Additionally, as we look at the articulation of this facade, with each of these materials we step back on the facade. So the brick is the furthest out. The framing at the brick is 1 foot proud of the framing at the stucco. And then from the stucco we step back another foot to the siding. So once you also then add in the relief of the brick, you're talking about 2 foot 4 plus or minus inches of relief between those on the flat planes, and then we've got our balconies that recess another, anywhere from 4 to 8 feet depending on the balcony as we go around. The elevation at the bottom is along Grove. You'll see again The low point is on the right at Cleveland. That's where we've got our tallest portion of the building that is 6 stories. Then we've got kind of a small landscape courtyard, then another wing of the building that sticks out that's 6 stories. Then we got our pool courtyard, and then we've got a 5-story volume that has a taller floor-to-floor height at the base where our clubhouse and fitness will be. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see the large oak grove that we're preserving. Something else to note on these exterior elevations, this is a little bit different from what you might have seen in your packet. We've been working through some comments and concerns with the neighbors and have updated these elevations to reflect 6-inch caliper trees for all of our street trees. And so what you see here should mirror pretty well to what is shown on our landscape site plan. Continuing with the elevation at the top is along Cleveland, and here's where you can see that dramatic drop from Arcadia on the right down to Grove on the left, and then again the gray box in the middle is where our entrance is into the garage. You can also see there's a number of larger trees on this elevation that are being preserved as part of that 25-foot setback. And then the middle elevation is the elevation along the alleyway. Again, we're still planting some trees in that alleyway space. And you can see the oak grove to the right in that elevation. And then we've got a blow up just of how that oak grove turns on the angled wall in the bottom right. So here we're looking at a building section, cross section through the garage at the top of the page. So you've got Grove to the right, Arcadia to the right, Grove to the left. You can see the difference in the elevation of those streets. The section actually is cut through our garage entry, and then you can see kind of the distance that we are from the existing backup curb, because again, we've got a 25-foot setback from the property line. The property line is 10 feet from the existing backup curb, so 35 feet from the street. You can also see in these sections at our garage that is 7 stories tall. The top level of that garage is close to the same level as the roof of our apartment building, and then there's a few rectangular boxes you see up there sticking above that. One is a stair tower and the other is the elevator tower that overruns a little bit higher. You can see these red lines are basically a line of sight that connects the top of those to the top of the parapet or roof edges, and you can see that those are not visible in these worst case scenarios along either Grove or Arcadia or from any of the residences along there. The image at the bottom is a longitudinal section through the site. You get Cleveland to the left and the alley to the right. And again, you can see how the 5 stories step down to that 6th level basement on the right. You've got that large oak tree we're trying to preserve along Arcadia, and then the 7 stories of the garage, and then that bottom exit out of the garage on the left. This is another section through the garage that is cut through Cleveland, and so you see the elevation of the garage there, and then that's looking back up Cleveland, and you can get an idea of the scale of the apartments to our right, and the elevation of Arcadia is a full 10 feet above where the driveway cut intersects here. These are those perspective views you saw earlier. These have also been updated to include the size trees, the 6-inch caliber trees that we're proposing along the streets. You get, again, the alleyway to the right, that brick volume at the bottom of the green siding is where our leasing office would be with a little entry canopy. And then that first recess is the courtyard with that large oak tree back in there. You can get a sense here for how the building facade steps back and forth with the various materials and how the feel of the roof overhang differentiates it from the roof parapets and some of the other volumes. This is a view from the other end of Arcadia. Arcadia goes to the right and Cleveland's going down to the left. There's a large existing tree at this corner that you see in the rendering, and then some of the other street trees. You can see here is a good image as well of that roof overhang and some of the balconies proposed. And then the view from Grove looking to the left and then looking back up Cleveland to the right. Again, you get the sense of the street trees here, the sidewalk that's been pulled into the site, and then the on-street parking that we're providing. And then here the final view from, you got the existing retail block there on the left in the white, and then you see that large oak grove with the building beyond. So we've also included some aerial views. This gives you a sense of how that garage at the top is at the plane of the roof, but also lets you see how far is set back from the edges of the roof that garage is. Another view from the other end of the site looking back towards Cleveland and Broadway. So again, we've been working hard on this for a long time. We've had some communication with some of the neighbors and have been working through some comments and concerns as best we can at this stage in the project. And we welcome any thoughts, comments, and feedback that you all would like to provide.
Thank you. Any other comments before we kind of sort of begin some little reactions?
From us?
Yeah.
I think we're fine.
Okay, great. Board?
It's a lot to think about. How many units do you have?
Right now, there's right at 300.
300?
We do not anticipate going over that if we stick with this same site plan.
You want to be around about 300?
It will be exactly 300. It may go down to 299, depending on if we need a space for.
Is there a reason for that quantity?
Sure. That's a great question. So when we went into this development, we start every, kind of financial model with what works. We know cost, because we build a lot. We know rents, because we manage a lot of assets up and down the Broadway corridor. And then we did a full-blown market study with an independent third party. 300 unit, it's really more about net rentable square footage for our model, which is right around about 270,000 net rentable square feet. And then we kind of use that and look at the market as a whole of what units rent. We want to.
Sorry, can you go back on that? What were you talking about square footage there?
The net rentable square footage, okay. Not gross, but net rentable is about 270,000. And so we look at the economics of it, construction cost, land cost, fixed cost, demolition cost. What is how to best do this? Is this a wrap? Is this a podium? And podiums are very expensive. Wraps are much more efficient to build. They're quicker to build, and that's what we settled on. But the overall economics of the project, we're also solving for in what are fairly significant, difficult financial times to get a deal done. Construction costs are down right now, which is a good time to build, but financing is very tough. We have to maintain a yield on cost that will attract institutional capital. So all of those pieces come together to formulate, a project that meets current underwriting criteria.
I think the material aesthetics nice. Lake Plato do a good job most of the time. The landscaping is great, but I think the scale of it is just so not appropriate. I think it's way too big for that property, especially its location.
Please, let's keep our comments to ourselves until we have a chance to have a public comment. Thank you.
Yeah. So I just think the scale is just so out of proportion to the neighborhood. Okay. My personal opinion. I understand you've got economics. I developed myself, so I understand that. But I think there needs to be more sensitivity to the area. Understand there's a lot of costs because all the demo you've got to do on that project, the existing, the school and everything else. But I just think, I think the sections tell the tale. Can you go back a couple and look at the section? Go back to the, that's one, I think that's one there really shows where you are with the 2 stories. We've got left and right. I think it's just massive. I think it's just too big.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank y'all for that presentation. I mean, it was really well thought out, anticipating, I think, a lot of the questions that we were going to have about parking and traffic flow. I think this one answered a question that I had already about line of sight to the staircases up above. So appreciate that. I think that the design, as far as the structure goes, it looks nice, but I agree with Lindsay on the scale and the compatibility, and I understand there's variances and things in play, so we're ways away from the final design. But otherwise, I mean, it looks nice. I feel like maybe 2 stories too tall, but I understand the finances. But that's really my only feedback. It looks nice, other than, of course, the scaling, which I think is not really compatible with the area.
Because on the one end, you're like 6 stories on the one side, 5 on the other. And I agree, I think you could take 2 stories off that, and it would be way more appropriate.
No, definitely understood that. And just so everybody knows, we studied all kinds of models, 3-story, 4-story, dealing with the setback. If we were to take, say, a floor off of this and reduce our net rentable by 40,000 square feet, the property value drops 80% in order to keep it yield neutral. I know that's nobody's problem here but the landowners, which we are not the landowner, but those are just the economics of buying a property that is currently producing an income stream that drastically needs to be redeveloped.
Yeah, so for me, I'm kind of on the same boat. It seems like there's at least not enough relief on some of those elevations. I think there's one rendering where there was some relief where you do have like substantial recesses, but I think it was the last slide. You can kind of see that. Not that one. So that corner, it really is just a vertical face with almost no relief on the 6 stories either. So it really needs to, even if you found ways to maybe set back the top 2 floors 10, 15 feet to give some relief. I know you're fighting units, but it just seems too massive for being in the middle of the neighborhood there. The architecture is nice, and y'all did a lot of good work on some of the site planning, the insets where you're dealing with the existing trees, how you're dealing with the topography, the material palette, all that's really nice. It's just the same thing as their comments, it's just the scale.
I think that in response to that, and valid point, I'm not here to say I don't agree that it is a large building. If we drop floors, that exposes a garage. And we cannot afford to put the garage subterranean. It just, it eats into the model, and subterranean parking is just not feasible. So there are drawbacks to wrapping the garage completely versus, exposing it on multiple sides.
I definitely appreciate what you have tried to do with the articulation and setting some back. I mean, I know you've made an effort to make it not seem as massive of a structure as it could otherwise seem. And I appreciate the work you did on the landscaping plan and the bigger trees and everything else and the details that you included in the packet on that, certainly. I just, we discuss in here, or we agonize a little bit on the residential side over things like looming lines, and to put a 6-story structure in the middle of this residential area just kind of makes that discussion for every residential client seem a little bit silly, right? If we're going to put something this massive in the middle of this area, so it just.
The other thing I'm thinking about as well is we had that conversation when they did all the schoolwork, and they said that the district was capped. If you got 300 people coming to this spot, I know you're replacing probably
42.
40 families maybe that's currently on the site.
It does sort of, just because of how large it is, it does remind me of like the large apartment complexes for college students. It's where I went to school, so.
In response to the question about families, a development like this typically doesn't attract families. There may be families temporarily relocate while they remodel or rebuild a house. Impact to the schools should be negligible, if any, but the property tax impact to the schools, right now, I think this site produces about $100,000, a little less than that, to the Alamo Heights School District. We did an independent property tax consultant report on this, and it will, at full stability, over $700,000 to just the school district alone. So,
Could you talk a little bit about the articulation on that northwest corner, that inset courtyard on Arcadia?
Sure.
How deep does that go?
I'm sorry, what was?
What's the depth of that courtyard? Approximately. I mean, it doesn't have to be precise, but you.
Approximately, it's 120 feet.
Yeah, the whole site's 320
From
deep,
Arcadia
so
into the interior wall.
Arcadia to the end of that courtyard's at least 120 feet from curb line, maybe.
Okay, then your articulations on Grove, the courtyard and then the pool,
80 feet, 80 to 90.
and then the carve out on the southwest corner
Goes from about 90 to 110.
from the street, and then from the alley.
And then from the alley the other direction, it's probably another 90 feet at least.
I'm not as opposed to the scale, taking in everything that's involved here. I have a little bit different view of it in the sense of, we desperately need something better there, desperately, and it's a problem as it stands now. And I don't know how we get that economically. And so it's a concern for me. And that's an issue on design. I mean, the design, that is affecting the design. That is a major component of the design, is the economics of it and the difficulty of what has to be replaced in order to make economic sense. So from my perspective, I'm saying it a little bit different in that the use here is absolutely correct. And we are charged with use considerations. So the use is correct. And we can argue about scale, and we've had that argument multiple times here, multiple times. And Magnolia Heights is a perfect example of that, where all the same arguments were proffered at the time. And I don't think that's out of scale with anything. So, I understand the scale argument, and I appreciate it. But I don't know how we get something of comparable quality that affects our neighborhood in a positive way without this scale. It's just not going to be economically feasible. That's my sense of it. I don't see how it works otherwise. I don't know what you put on there. You could put high-density single-family, and I don't think you can get there from here. I don't think you get enough, directional change and velocity in terms of rents that you can get, given the density that you can acquire. So the density in these urban areas like this becomes a critical issue and unfortunate, but I really hope for better things in that site.
I agree. I don't agree with this is the only solution and mass is the only solution. I mean, as a big enough site, you could do single family on that pretty easily. And the reason we have zoning for this exact reason. That you start with commercial, multifamily, single family, and it's there for a reason. And, you've got the 35 feet maximum, and it's like it's been totally disregarded, and economics are all been thrown in instead. But I just think the economics can be thought about in a different way. I just do. I think that they're making the argument that, okay, to make this type of project work, we need this much mass, we need this much square footage. But I think you can look at it from a different point of view and think if you have a different concept to it, which I don't think anybody's looked at, I don't think from their business model, they don't look at it like that. That's not their bag. And I think that it could be looked at, and a really nice development that could be a 3-story development that's more in scale with the rest of the.
Given the land price.
What's that?
Given the land price.
Including the land price, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Well,
I just strongly disagree with that.
All right.
But that's part of what we're trying to deal with here, and there is a concept here where these economics are going to drive design. And I just think that's something we're going to have to think about and think about it long and hard. That's just my perspective. But we don't have anything to decide here tonight. I mean,
Well, I do think that the Magnolia Heights is not a good comparison. I think
it's a
Magnolia Heights.
perfect comparison.
No.
I mean,
because
every single argument about massing
in a
and
totally
design and
different
height
location.
was proffered to us on that
It's a
topic.
totally different location. It's on a corner, a street corner.
But
that's
still, there's still the same arguments were presented to us.
I don't think, this is an internal residential development. That, Magnolia Heights is on a corner of major thoroughfare that has vast, probably twice, 2.5 times the distance between the facade.
But you could argue that two sides of this is almost strictly commercial.
What's that?
You could argue that two sides of this is almost strictly commercial.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I said it's appropriate in that location to be that scale because it's in its location. But this is smack in the middle of a neighborhood. And I don't think that's a valid enough reason to have something this vast there. I just don't think it.
Maybe a comment on the scale portion. We work in a lot of municipalities across the country, and there's other municipalities typically have, when it comes to looming or relationship to single-family developments, typically have a slope to that. A lot of times, sometimes it's 1 to 1, sometimes you got to go over 2 feet to go up 1 foot. But just for reference, from kind of the finished face of our building, once you accommodate our 25-foot setback to the finished face of the buildings around us, accommodating their setbacks is over 100 feet. And so along Arcadia, for example, our height is to the top of the roof on that side is about 52, 53 feet, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're right at that kind of 1 to 2 ratio from a slope that when you look at things from an urban design and planning standpoint is kind of a rule of thumb as you look at how you vary height and adjust height across.
Letty and Tyler, is there looming requirements for commercial if you're not abutting a property? Like if you're facing a street, is there any looming requirements, or it's just, I know we're looking at variances, but I'd be interested to know what the rule for looming is.
Yeah, if you're abutting public right-of-way, there's not technically a looming requirement. And then for multifamily, unless you are abutting a single-family zone district, there's not a looming requirement there.
That's all I got.
Adam, anything else? Great, thank you so much for
Yeah,
for
thanks
coming.
again for the
And
presentation.
we'll open, it's now 7:30 PM, and we'll open up the hearing to public comments. And I want to remind everybody that comes forward, and we appreciate you're here to comment about this, and we really want to encourage public discourse on this. But we do have a 3-minute per person time limit, so hopefully we'll be cognizant of that. And so now 7:30 PM, we'll begin with Doug Smith, who's top of the list here, 201 Arcadia Place. Welcome.
Everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. My name is Doug Smith, and I'm at 201 Arcadia Place, right at the corner of Cleveland and Arcadia, directly adjacent to the site. I want to begin by saying this clearly. We support redeveloping this property. A vacant school and a 1970s apartment complex are not the best use of this land, and we have told the applicant that directly. Our concern is the scale of what's being proposed. The base standard here is 35 feet and 3 stories. The city has confirmed that to us in writing. The applicant's own filed SUP describes this project as a 6-story building under the city's zoning definition, wrapped around a 7-story parking garage. We met with the applicant. They were candid, and they have begun responding to our concerns. They provided corner-by-corner heights taken from all of their own elevations. By their own numbers, the building would stand 74.5 feet above the sidewalk at Grove and Cleveland, and 77.5 feet with the parapet. Separately, the filed SUP seeks permission for rooftop towers extending up to 12 feet above the proposed 65-foot maximum. That is more than twice the base standard, directly across from single-family homes. The applicant also confirmed 2 things with us that the board should know. First, no lower massing or split height alternatives have been studied. None. Second, the applicant attributes much of the building's height to designing around the interior oak grove. That grove is a discretionary site amenity, not a code requirement. The massing study should test that trade-off rather than treat it as fixed. So we are asking the board to do two things: direct the applicant to place its complete height exhibit into the record, and require the applicant to study and present material-reduced street-facing massing alternatives before final review. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see. Ms. Culverhouse? Mr. Culverhouse? Got two of them.
Good evening. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm the first one.
All right,
Zenon,
come on.
Culverhouse.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I reside at 403 Cleveland Court, just about a block north of Acadia off of Grandview. I do support building new housing on this site, but my ask is simple. The board should know exactly what it is reviewing. Across the applicant's own documents, this project has been 299 units, 300 units, and 305 units in the filed special use permit. So I'm really just asking for consistency there. The garage appears as 6 levels in one document and 7 in another. The SUP itself says 7. The height has been described as 65 feet, 65 and a half feet, or 61 and a half feet, sorry, and 77 feet to the top of the towers, depending which page you read. Each number may have an explanation. We've got a little bit of that tonight. But a project this size, this close to homes, should not move through public review as a moving target. We understand the applicant has told neighbors that they will produce a single one-page data sheet with the controlling numbers. Height at each corner, units, bedrooms, garage levels, and parking. We asked the board to require that dated signed data sheet as part of the record before this returns for a final review. So the board, the neighbors, and the applicant are all looking at the same building. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Hello. My name is Dr. Mady Stovall Culverhouse, and I reside at 403 Cleveland Court, a home that has stood for 122 years and was built by the Sam Houston family. I'm about 225 feet from this site. I do support housing at this site, and I have many concerns. My concern that I am speaking to tonight, for the record, is the garage entrances and what the building edges do to our streets. And these are permanent design elements that this board reviews. The plan places a garage portal directly on Arcadia Place, the street with single-family homes, including homes immediately facing the site. The comprehensive plan says garage entries should not be visible or prominent. A second portal sits on Cleveland Court, roughly 10 feet lower, which raises its own ramp and queuing questions. The applicant told neighbors about a week ago that it would provide an overlay showing headlight alignments. That should be in the record and not just a conversation. There are also roughly 300 condensing units planned for the roof and garage exhaust venting, with screening the applicant says will work, but has not yet documented. We asked the board to require, before final review, sections through both portals showing ramps, queuing, and screening. We'd like to see a photometric lighting plan measured at the nearest residential windows. And we want to see mechanical and acoustic details for the rooftop equipment. These edges are what our neighborhood will have to live with every day. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Okay. I'm sorry about handwriting, but it's at the resident at 117 Arcadia. It's Angela? I'm sorry. Would you like to speak? You're more than welcome to, please. Sorry, I didn't misread you.
I was signing. Never been to one of these before.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
I live at 117 Arcadia. This property that's proposed is 20, 30 feet from my home. Basically, the only thing separating it is the street. I'm I'm a huge fan of Flato. I love their work. I think this property could be amazing on Broadway or another street that's high traffic, but this is a residential area. I'd like to see it shorter, definitely. I think it's so easy to look at these pictures, and it looks very set back off the street. It looks very far away from my single-family home or my neighbor Betty's single-family home that is 100 years old. But it's literally right there. Like, when we stand in our street, there was a lot of talk earlier about streetscape. Well, I have no streetscape. What's there now, I mean, yeah, it may not be appealing or the best use of the property, but it's beautiful. I mean, even the old school, there's greenery, there's tons of trees everywhere. I think that there definitely could be some scaling down on this and definitely some more greenery added to it. This looks like a lot, but it's just like a couple trees popped in front, Yeah, and then the parking is a huge concern I'd like addressed. With 300 units, I don't know how many are one-room apartments versus two-room apartments. I'm not sure the numbers on that, but the parking just really seems not in match with how many people will be living there. So the other question I have is, what's after this? Like, do y'all vote, or on August do we vote?
We won't vote tonight. This is just a preliminary review, and then they'll continue to go forward in the other part of the processes with the planning and zoning, the SUP request there, and any variances that might come along with that, and then they'll come back to the ARB, and then that'll go forward to the council.
Okay. I think the people that all spoke before me did much better job and outlined the same things basically I'm concerned about, is that we know that development should happen, but just not sure this mammoth structure is the answer. And it definitely doesn't seem like a good reason is we're not making enough profit. Like, I think there's definitely a way to make a profit if maybe it's a smaller builder or a smaller group coming in that doesn't have, that isn't requiring so much revenue from the property. And then no one's really focused on the parking. I'd like to see a study that shows actual parking. You can't look at a school that's vacated and then say that's enough parking for 300. I mean, how many people are going to be living there? 400 people? That's not enough parking. So that's a concern.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
All right,
Thanks.
appreciate you. All right, that's all I have on the list, but is there anybody else like to come up and speak? Yeah, please come on up. Thank you. Tell us who you are.
I'm Cassidy Luchin.
Hi.
I live at 203 Arcadia,
Glad
so
you're
I'm
here.
a bit catty-cornered. Glad to be here. It's really interesting to see how y'all work. We went through a big renovation ourselves, so I understand how expensive it can be, but that is something that my family took into consideration before we purchased our property, and we took it into consideration knowing the rules of living in a place like Alamo Heights, that the rules were designed to create a really lovely community feel. So we, luckily for us, I guess, didn't overextend ourselves with our investment in the land. But the question that I had for you guys is, you specifically said that the location is a problem. Could you tell us more about your point of view on that, just so that we can understand what your mindset is with?
Well, I mean, the citizenship of her is not really kind of appropriate for back and forth, but
okay, sorry.
I'm happy to sort of respond to it maybe after. But, please go forward, and I'll make a statement about it if you'd like for me to.
The things that I'm concerned about besides the scale is the traffic also is a concern for me. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old who like to ride their bikes. Right now, it's already a super awful street in terms of traffic. Like, I've been trying to figure out how to request a stop sign at Arcadia and Cleveland just to try to slow people down. But if we added 300 plus units with 400 plus people living in them and all those cars also leading, I mean, I walk my son to, I know that the commercial space at the end of the street was referred to as something that needs redevelopment, but I walk my son there to ballet every week. And sometimes he scoots by himself, and it's a really lovely place to be able to experience, and it's why we wanted to live there, because it is so close to the Broadway corridor. Moving from New York City during the pandemic, it was a real breath of fresh air. But if it becomes a giant throughway, because there are 300 new units, it's going to be really difficult to feel comfortable walking my kids. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
I'm glad to see y'all tonight. I'm Betty Garlock. And
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
I'm glad to be here. I live in the little house that's right across from the proposed place. It's been there for, next year will be 130 years. It's the second oldest house in Alamo Heights. And, you know, I love a neighborhood. I agree with you, I agree with all of you that the Treehouse Apartments have not been the best neighbors. I'm not going to be sad to see them go. That oak tree that y'all are worried about back there, it's going to go before you get through building. I can pretty well assure you. 2 of them have gone down since I've been there in the last, 15, 16, 17 years. Anyway, I hope that I hope we can come to agreement, because I think everybody agrees that we want something better, but we just don't want it to be quite so in our face, just so big. And I really hope that, when Brad and Joel came and visited with me, and I was very excited that Embry was working on it in Lake Flato. I think both of them have great reputations, and I know they would make a quality place in our neighborhood, but I agree with y'all. It's just so big. And if they could some way figure out a way to scale it down, to maybe move the taller sides down in front of the existing apartments and have it a staggered height, or just, we're willing, all of us, I think, are willing to work with them in any way we can. I would like to say I'm not fond of having one of the driveways on Arcadia Place, just because, school buses stop and pick up kids there. It's just not a good place. Grove, on the other hand, has apartments. It has commercial, and I'd really like to see it flipped. And do we have to have 2 entrances into the garage, or can they all be off of Cleveland Court? Those are just questions I'm thinking that we might consider. Okay.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Anyone else like to comment? Well, we certainly appreciate everybody being here and expressing yourself as good neighbors, and we're all neighbors here, and we all want to do the best thing for our community. So thank you for being here and expressing your thoughts and concerns about the project. We really appreciate that. Appreciate your input. We don't have a decision to make tonight as preliminary review, so I don't think we have any other. Well, it's 7:45. We'll close the public hearing side of this meeting tonight. But with that, I think we're at the end of our agenda. Unless there's any other comments that you guys would like to make before we close out.
Nope.
Clay, you good?
Thanks for everybody coming tonight, and that's great.
Ashley? Good? Adam?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Somebody might make
I move to adjourn.
Motion it first, yeah. I'll second it now.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate y'all being here so much.
Recording stopped.